Welcome to chascrazycreations. Head over to Dollar Tree, grab a few supplies for this awesome fall DIY. Let's get started. And today is another craft or crap challenge. You decide. Rule number 1, it needed to include a gnome. So this is the gnome I'll be using, and I purchased mine on Amazon. You can find the link in the description below. So I'm going to start with these napkins that I got at the dollar store. So I'm going to take the napkin and I'm going to go ahead and cut it into strips and then into squares. This will make it easier to maneuver for the next step. Next, I'm going to grab some Mod Podge. Now, I'm using gloss, but if you're going to place this outside, you might want to use dishwasher safe Mod Podge. Now, what I'm going to do is paint some of the Mod Podge onto the gnome, and then I'm going to place the small squares of napkin onto the Mod Podge, and then I'm going to place another layer of Mod Podge over the top. And I'm going to continue doing this until all of his pants are complete with the napkins. So what I'm doing is adding some texture to the pants of the gnome. Here's a quick look at the pants completed, and that white Mod Podge will dry clear. Want my free to-do list? Look for the link in the description below. Next, I'm going to use some red napkins that I found at the dollar store as well. Now, I ran into one problem with the blue napkins, and that was that there was this white film in between the napkins. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that this time, and then I'm going to repeat the same process of cutting it into strips and then into squares. And just like before, I'm going to paint on the Mod Podge, add one of the little squares of napkin, and then paint Mod Podge over the top. And I'm going to do this for the entire shirt of the gnome. And here's the completed red. Now you'll see I didn't go under the edge. You can totally do that if you want to. For this next step, I'm going to be using Folk Art Multi-Surface Paint in the color Light Flesh. And what I did was I painted both of his hands and his face with the paint. Now, I did notice that the resin was a little slippery, so the first coat didn't come out as good as I like, so I'm definitely adding a second coat. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Next, I'm grabbing some apple barrel paint in the color black. I use this to paint all of his belt. Now, I did notice the black went on much better and easier than the flesh colored, so the lighter color paints are a little bit harder and are going to need 2 coats. The darker colors might need less. In addition to his belt, I also painted part of the shoes black as well. Now, I always love to pay tribute to an item with its original color, so I'm going to leave part of the shoes with the original gray as well as the belt buckle. And here's a quick look at how he turned out after the black paint and the second coat of the flesh color paint. You might be interested in my new DIY books. You can find all of the information in the description below. For my next step, I plan to use Chanel yarn that I found at the dollar store. I cut the yarn into several strips. Now I took the yarn and I dipped it in the Mod Podge and I planned to stick it on the gnome. Now I've done this before with a different project, my Uncle Sam project. But what happened was a fail. It didn't stick. No matter what I tried, I could not get the yarn to stick on his hair. I waited for it to get tacky. It just wasn't going to work. Luckily, I had a backup plan. I had this mop from the dollar store. And it just goes to show that no project is a fail. You can always recover. So I started by cutting this mop. Have you ever had a fail before? Let me know in the comments below. I added some hot glue to the back of his head, and then I placed this strip from the mop on the back of his head and waited for that to cool. Now, I found that sometimes my cool glue gun worked, and sometimes I needed my hotter hot glue gun. So I started pulling more pieces out of the mop, and you can see some laying on the table. And I added some hot glue, and then I placed the loose pieces of mop onto his beard. And I continued doing this all the way across the front of his beard. Next, I added a dab of hot glue to his mustache, and then created a mustache out of those scrap mop pieces. Now, I'm not going to lie, this was a little troublesome to do this whole process because the hot glue was sticking to my fingers and some of the pieces were falling off, but I really like the end result. I grabbed some adhesive chalkboard side from the dollar store. I cut it to the right size and I peeled it off and stuck it on the sign on the gnome. Now I wanted to do this so I could always go back to the original sign, or I could change the sign up later if I want to. Now with any chalkboard, you need to season it by rubbing chalk all over the surface. If you don't do this step, when you write it and then try to erase it, the word kind of permanently stays on the chalkboard. So I went ahead and seasoned the whole piece of chalkboard sticker first. After seasoning it, you can go ahead and erase it and the chalkboard is ready. By making this chalkboard sign, I could easily write anything I want to on it. So I could write the word fall, and then other times a year, I'll be able to change the sign so it says things like welcome, love, home, whatever you want per season. You could even draw pictures and let kids get in on the fun. What would you write? Let me know in the comments below. Rule number 2, it needed to have a fall theme. I was going to do that, but then I found these little wooden signs from the dollar store. There were 6 to choose from: Hello Fall, Hello Autumn, Give Thanks, Welcome Fall, Blessed, and Farm Fresh. Now it already says Blessed, so I want to change that up. Which one of these would you pick? Let me know in the comments below. Now I'm going to be using Folk Art Ultra Dye in the color Solar Power and Lady Marmalade. I started by painting the yellow Solar Power on top, and I just love the way this Folk Art Ultra Dye just soaks right into the wood. I just can't even explain how beautiful it is. It's like a wood stain. Next, I painted on the orange Lady Marmalade to the bottom, and then I wanted to create kind of an ombre look by overlapping the colors and blending them in the center. Now, I had bought some fabric with a pumpkin on it for this next step, but I couldn't find it. Somehow I lost it. So I happen to have these football socks from the dollar store, and I grabbed those instead. I cut the top off of the sock. I squished together the top end that I had cut, and I added a little rubber band to it. I took my scissors and I cut little slits into the hat to kind of make a little pom-pom top. And I slid the sock on top over the other gnome hat. Now what I love about this is I'm going to be able to change this up per season, both the sign and the hat on the gnome. Now my little wooden sign was dry, so I added a little bit of hot glue to the back, and then I centered it onto the chalkboard sign. Now, I wanted to embellish it a little bit, so I had bought this vine from the dollar store, and I'm just going to wind it around the gnome and loop it around him and circle it just to add some extra fall flair. And I love anything that lights up, so I found these little LED lights at the dollar store that are orange, and I just went ahead and wove them around the gnome as well. And I turned it on, and the lights lit up. Rule number 3, it had to include a pumpkin. Since I lost the fabric with the pumpkin on it, I'm just going to go ahead and add the little pumpkin here because that was one of the rules as well. Here is my fall gnome, and I'm thrilled with how he turned out, and I love that I'm going to be able to change him up for every season and leave him out year round. Now, let me know in the comments below, is this a craft or crap? You decide. Now hop on over to Mona's and check out her project, and let us know, is it craft or crap? You get to decide. And guess what? You can buy 2, get 1 free of my books right now. Look for the link in the description below. Oh, and before I forget, did you know that every time I was trying to craft, the gnome kept hiding? So I had to look, and oh my goodness, how long it took for me to get this gnome captured to make this craft. Just goes to show that whenever you have a challenge, there's always a way to fix it. Oh, and you can click here if you want to learn how to make this gnome. Want to be featured in future videos? Look for the information in the description below. Today's feature goes to Karina and Shannon. Congratulations! And don't forget, we have a Facebook group too, and a sign-up form to be notified of future videos. Look for all the details down in the description below. And I hope this inspires you to join our Craft or Crap Challenge and make your own DIY fall gnome. I'd love it if you'd subscribe to my YouTube channel and my blog at chascrazycreations.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.